Okay, we've got the 3 screws out of the accelerator pump cover. As we take the last one off, want to make sure you keep a little pressure on the cover itself. It does have a spring under there, and it will come off easy, and raise that off. There's a couple O-rings. There's one O-ring, it's just a small O-ring here, and a small O-ring over on the body of the bolt itself. There's also a spring on here. Spring doesn't matter, it can go either way, so you don't have to worry about that. Take the spring out and take the this is your accelerator pump diaphragm. We'll take that out, we'll clean everything there. I'm going to take this O-ring out and lay it to the side. You got to be really careful, or you can actually you can blow these things out and lose them. Accelerator pump's not going to work if you don't have the O-ring sealed up. You're going to have a leak. So we've got that out. We've got the one out of the accelerator pump cover. And basically the carburetor is disassembled now. What we're going to do is we're going to clean it up really good, and we're going to put it back together. Okay, at this point we've got the carburetor cleaned up. Yeah, just regular carburetor cleaner. Spray it down really good. Make sure you blow compressed air through all the passages. Your pilot jet, start jet, main jet passages, your inlet valve. Over here on your hot start and your choke. Make sure you blow through those to make sure there's no dirt in there. Next, go ahead, blow, spray some carburetor cleaner through all your jets. Blow those out with compressed air really good, and at that point you're ready to start putting the carburetor back together. What we're going to do first is put the put the accelerator pump back together. Just the reverse of the way you took it apart. Put the accelerator pump diaphragm back in. It fits down into the carburetor bowl, and so we want to put that back in there. Okay, remember on your accelerator pump there's 2 ways for this thing to go in there, but there's only one way that'll work right. On this end it's actually got a stop that contacts the bottom of the accelerator pump cover, and it limits the travel of the accelerator pump. So you want to make sure that goes in there right. Put your spring back on, make sure all your O-rings are in place, and then we're going to slide the accelerator pump cover down on it, and put your screws back in. Okay, next up we've got the carburetor bowl. The accelerator pump is back together. Next step is going to be to put the carburetor slide back in. Again, you want to make sure the vacuum plate is on in the right direction with the notched outside down. Alright, make sure you hold the slide so that the vacuum plate doesn't fall off. The vacuum plate goes towards the engine side of the carburetor. Roll your pull these rollers up, watch the wheels on them. These wheels, they shouldn't come off. I've seen a few of them that will. Ease the slide back down into the carburetor, and as it lines up with the rollers, slide the rollers back into place, and it should slide right in. From there you can work the slide back and forth with your fingers. We want to make sure we put this screw back into the throttle shaft, and then the slide will be done. Okay, we've got the slide back together. Now we're going to flip the carburetor over. First we're going to put in the pilot jet. Pilot jet goes on the engine side of the carburetor, and goes in right beside the main jet. Slide the pilot jet in. Tighten it down. You don't have to get too crazy with it, but you want to make sure it's not going to back itself back out. Alright, from there we're going to put the start jet back in. And next we're going to make sure you get your bowl baffle in. There's only one way this thing will go, so you can't get it on there backwards. Slide the baffle back in, in place. Then we're going to put our main nozzle. The needle's sticking out through there, so you're going to have to slide that down over the needle. And then we're going to use an 8mm socket and a nut driver, and tighten that down. Again, don't need it too tight, but you want it snug. You don't want it coming out. And next, you're going to put the main jet in. Slide that right in, and that's a 6mm. Just snug it down, and that's got your jets back in. Next, we're going to put the carburetor float back in. Okay, to put the float back in, we're going to put the inlet needle assembly back on to the little tab that it goes on. Slides right on. From there, you just hold the carburetor and slide the needle down into the hole, and we'll put the pin back in the float bowl. You have to line the float up and slide the pin in. At this point, we want to check the float level. Most of these carburetors, as you can see here, the needle is spring loaded, so it'll actually go farther than just closed. You slowly rotate the carburetor over, and once the float sits down, it should be level with the bottom, the sealing surface of the carburetor. That's generally where your float height should be. At this point, we've got one more jet left over. This is the leak jet. This is the one that goes down into the bowl of the carburetor. So we're going to put that back in. And we're ready to put the carburetor bowl back in. Again, one of the things that you just got to do is really important, is make sure you keep everything perfectly clean. You don't want any trash getting into the carburetor. So we've got the leak jet back in. Carburetor bowl only goes on one way. Watch your accelerator pump rod, and it actually goes into the hole on the bowl of the carburetor. Slide that together, and it should fit right back down. From there, we put our screws back in, and we've got a few other things to do, but then we'll have the carburetor back together. Okay, we've got the bowl back on the carburetor. Make sure you get your idle speed adjustment goes over here. Make sure you get that back in the right location, and then your guides for the carburetor vent lines. Make sure you get those back on. Next thing is going to be to slide the fuel screw back into the carburetor. Slide that down in there, and if you remember earlier, the fuel screw was set at 1 round and 3/4, round and 3/4 out. So what you want to do is turn it in. Don't crank this thing down, or you'll damage the end of it. Just till it lightly seats. And on this one, we're going to back it out. There's 1/2, 1/2, and 3/4. Next, we're going to put the choke knob back into the carburetor. Just feed that in there. Run it down with your fingers, and 14mm wrench. Snug it down. Again, this thing's plastic, so you don't want to over tighten it. You'll strip it out. Carburetor's back together, and we're ready to put it back on the bike. So that's all there is to it. Really not that hard, and yeah, it's something that needs to be done every now and then just to make sure the carburetor's in good shape. So hopefully this helped you out. You've learned how to clean your own carburetor. Really not that hard. There's a lot of pieces in there, but take your time, lay everything out. Shouldn't have any problems doing it.